device, FLAcarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLAcarshows.com.
There are four guys named John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Are you a mod or a rocker?
No, I'm a mocker.
And they've just decided, for the first time, they're going to break all the rules.
Where are you going, John? She's not showing me a stamp collection.
In the next 24 hours, they're going to throw out their schedules, ignore their obligations, and get a taste of freedom.
Don't move, any of you. The place is surging with girls.
Please, sir, can I have one to surgery, sir, please, sir? Going in, then?
No, she'll only reject me in the end, and I'll be frustrated.
Can Bobby love?
Excuse me, the two young men I'm sitting with wondered if two of us could come over and join you. I'd actually myself, only I'm shy. Just for once, let's all try to behave like ordinary, respectable citizens. Gotcha.
Miramax Films is proud to present The Beatles as you've never seen them before.
Ringo. Yeah, that's what they all say these days.
Featuring an enhanced picture and a digitally restored soundtrack that's better than the original. Roger Ebert calls it one of the great life-affirming landmarks of the movies.
With a love like that, you know you should.
A Hard Day's Night.
Be glad.
Oh, well, very good, that, George. Oh, we're trying. Yeah.
Set the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir, Mr. Peabody.
Hi, this is Nick Mason from Pink Floyd, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned in to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google TalkTalk1340.com, and you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, where you can find out all about us. And if you missed any of our past shows for the last 12 and a half years, visit NostalgicRadioandCars.com, and they're all there waiting for you to just flip the switch and listen and go back into time. Speaking of time, how are you doing this evening, Bobby?
Oh, I'm doing well, and it's time to have the first show of the new year here.
The first show of the new year. Happy New Year's to everybody. I hope everybody had a really great, 7 or 8, 9 days, something like that, and a great Christmas and obviously a spectacular New Year. And for us, we're optimistic, and we're going to have a better New Year than we did last year, I think.
Now we're about, I'll correct that to probably be 12 3/4. Because we're getting pretty close to May here.
Well, yeah, we will have been on the air officially for 13 years. That's pretty good. 13, that's a good number. See, we like 13. Anyway.
I hope so.
I hope so. Well, you have to be optimistic,
yes.
Always be positive. Anyway, we got a great show for you tonight. We got a very special guest for you, and we're going to open the year up with on a music note, so to speak. So stick around. We got some pretty cool stuff going on. Now, let me just give you some highlights real quick. Obviously, if you want to know where all the car shows are in Florida, check out FLAcarshows.com here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Well, now, technically, if you scroll down midway down the page on nostalgicradioandcars.com, you can just click her logo, and there you are.
That's it.
FLAcarshows.com.
Yeah. All right. So what's going on this weekend? This weekend, our good friends over there at Rooster's Hot Rod Shop is having their annual New Year's Eve cruise and drive and hangout party. That's this weekend. And Roosters is located in their own backyard. Now, they do some pretty amazing cars. They're more traditional hot rodders, which I'm into, okay? And so their number is, obviously, if you want to find out more about it, well, visit the website, roosters.com. or Roosters Hot Rodshop.com. I'll get that straight. Okay, and they're at 12200 34th Street North in St. Petersburg. Can't miss them. There'll be a whole bunch of hot rods. It starts like around 5 o'clock officially, but people start gathering like around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There'll be some burnouts and some music and some entertainment, a bunch of stuff for the kids, bouncy thingies, whatever they call it. What are those things? Bouncy houses? Is that
Bounce
what they call
house, yes.
Bounce house, yeah, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. MECOM starts this week too. 9, 10, 11, 12 days. 4,000 cars. Think about this. 4,000. Like I mentioned a couple weeks ago on the show, I got the email which said that their last consignment car, their 4,000th car, was a 1969 Boss 429 KKK number 1396, I think. And mine was 1399. 3 cars away from mine. Mine was royal maroon. This one was candy apple red.
And if you're not going to bid, it, like we always say, it's a really big car show and a really cool car show.
It is. Think about this: 4,000 cars, and it is just.
Where else are you going to see that?
Yeah, where else are you going to see that? I mean, just pack the lunch, pack the kids, pack the wife, pack everybody, and go over and have a really, really good time. I mean, just amazing stuff. I mean, stuff that you see in magazines, they come to life right there for you. It's kind of like HSR, good friends with HSR, Historic Sports Car Racing. You follow the vintage races. You're familiar with some of the vintage race cars. You go to the vintage races. It's rolling history racing around the track. It's pretty cool. Then, of course, the latter part of the month is Scottsdale Car Week. So you got Barrett Jackson, you got Gooding, you got RM, you got Bonhams, and you got Worldwide. And the newest player on the street is actually, wait a minute, there's one out in, oh gosh, I can't think of it. It used to be Silvers. It's a new one. I just got the email on it the other day, and I'm sorry, I don't remember it. But our good friends over there at the Arizona Concourse, they did that a few years back. It was a spectacular show. It took place at the Bellevue Biltmore Estate or Bellevue Biltmore Hotel in Arizona.
Arizona Biltmore. The Biltmore.
Yeah, the Arizona.
Not the Bellevue Biltmore.
Right. The Arizona Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix. There we go. I'll be okay. Anyway, and so that's a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to it. Well, they did it for like 4 years, and they stopped it, and now they brought it back, and now it's downtown in Scottsdale. So that should be pretty spectacular. And we got Bob Golfin coming on here in a couple of weeks, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's involved in it very heavily. So we'll find out about that. Just amazing cars. I mean, we truly love cars. Just like last week we had our New Year's Eve show. We celebrated with Bill Warner from Amelia Island, and just these type of cars absolutely are incredible. They're works of art, they're pieces of history. Very, very, it gives you an idea of where we were and the path we took to get where we are today. Anyway, on that note, I think what we're going to do is we're going to fire up the stereo here a little bit. We're going to play. What are we playing, Bobby?
Ticket to Ride.
We're on the Beatles. Ticket to Ride. You got you by tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, you have a ticket to ride to some really cool interviews, music, and just some cool show hosts. Me and Bobby and I. Did I say that right? Anyway, hey,
that's proper grammar. Yes.
Is that proper grammar? Okay. See, anyway. So I did graduate high school. I didn't finish college, but anyway. Hey, you're tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Enjoy Ticket to Ride, the Beatles.
I think it's today. Yeah. The girl that's driving me mad is going away. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care. She said that living with me was bringing her down, yeah. She would never be free when I was around. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care. I don't know why she's riding so high. Sure think twice, sure to do right by me before she gets to saying goodbye. Sure think twice, sure to do right by me. think I'm gonna be sad. I think it's today, yeah. The girl that's driving me mad is going away, yeah. Ah, she's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Okay, we're back, and you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Now, you know I'm in the biz, right? So every once in a while, I kind of have to have some automotive stuff done. So I would like to give a few shout-outs to a couple of good guys that I had to patronize this week. And one of them is our good friends over there at Dependable Drive Shaft. Now, they took a friend of mine's BMW 3 Series race car drive shaft, had to replace a U-joint. Now, this is something I wasn't sure. Never seen this before, but, normally there's a C-clip that holds a U-joint in. No, not this thing. This thing had some special punch that basically pushed the metal down and kind of held the cups in place. And you had to have a special tool to remove it and to re-punch it. And I said, well, now you can only do that so many times, and then that drive shaft yoke is no good. He says, well, chances are you're going to have to do it twice in the lifetime of the car. I go, okay, well, this is going on a 3 Series race car. But anyway, and then a big shout out to our good friends over there at iBelt Performance. They're the ones that always manage to keep my 911 running, and they can keep your Porsche running too as well. And our good friends over there at Mitchell Collision in Lutz, they do some pretty good work there. They're a pretty decent body shop. They got state-of-the-art equipment, very clean, and just a really good bunch of people to work with. So if you need some paint and body work and collision work done, go check out Mitchell Collision in Lutz. Okay. And I think that then of course, a couple places, but I deal with them because it's wholesale. But a big shout out to my friends over there at Forte's Garage. Really good guys down there. If you got your classic car, they are the guys to work on your classic Mustang. And then Tom Argue, big shout out to Tom. He builds SEMA quality cars. I was hanging down in his shop, and there was a 67 Corvette Roadster down there that was absolutely, undeniably beautiful. And it was that real pretty, it's kind of like a steel metallic gunmetal blue. I can't remember what Corvette called it that year. It was a 1 year only, I think 67 color, just a stunning car. And it's totally resto mod, $500,000 project, just a beautiful car. And we got somebody on the line, right?
Yeah, here's your comedy skit.
Oh, it's comedy skit. January. Okay, this must be Charlie.
Listen, how you going? First of all, Happy New Year, healthy.
Okay, I'm healthy.
And listen, look, we got to. You guys know I shoot for Fox and CBS, but our prayers go out to that ball player that got whacked, man. What a horrible thing, man. I mean, it's just I'm glad the NFL said forget the game, forget all that. Think about this guy and his family, and everybody clicked in. So it's a sad thing, you know what I'm saying? But then on a newer note, you guys doing good? How's your health? Everybody doing good? Staying safe?
Yeah, I'm not coughing that yet, so I'm doing pretty good, and I'm breathing, and I'm standing up. I'm sitting here at the station on the microphone. That means, pardon me?
You got your Strat there?
No, I didn't bring my Strat. It's safely snuggled away. It's sitting right beside my Fender Mustang.
What do you say? One week, one night, I'll come in with my other guys, and we'll just do a little jam there with the band.
That would be kind of interesting. I only play a couple chords and a couple riffs. So you have to.
That's all you need. Yeah, 3 chords. I could show you all the Creedence Clearwater Revival songs.
That works. That works.
One other thing, I'm heading back to New York because my cousin's friend is Jewish, asked me to start driving some of his friends around. So we got a new thing. It's called Juber. Instead of Uber, it's for Jewish people. It's called Juber. And then all the Jewish people love it. They love it. But I'm Italian. How am I going to get away with that? So I might have to grow some dreads or something like that, or just some, something like that.
We will all chip in and buy you a yarmulke. Okay. And I have a lot of good friends that are Jewish, and they're listening.
So do I. A ton.
Yeah. So they're cool.
Yeah, very cool, down-to-earth people, real. I mean, it was just, my friends like, we should do that. I said, yeah, the Jewish people would love it. Because, but I just want to let you know, and I guess, maybe 10% can come your way.
All right, that works. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So you guys be safe and healthy, happy one, and, take care of your family and friends, right?
We will do that, and we'll see you soon, Charlie, and we'll have to, we'll have to plug in, as they say down here.
Let's do it. Let's do it tonight. Give me a day's or two notice. I'll bring the gang down. We'll jam with you.
All right. I'll bring my bass just in case. That's 4 strings. I can't screw up too bad.
Okay. And we'll do some Beatles songs. We'll do some Beatles songs for Al.
All right. We'll do that for Al. You got it.
Okay.
Hey, speaking of Beatles songs, we're going to be playing some Beatles and Doors later. So tune in. Okay. We're back and you're tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Are we live? What happened?
He hung up.
We're good. Oh, okay. No worries. All right. So, what did we just do? Where am I at? Okay. And did I just mention that? I did give a couple shout outs to my friends over there. Okay. Anyway. All right. So Bobby, why don't you go ahead and fire up the stereo and let's go ahead and get our guest on the line here before I think of something else. And then I'll just, gift the gab. You're tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Here is a Little Doors and Peace Frog. I said it right. Peace Frog. Peace out, man.
Up to my ankles, right in the streets, it's up to my knees. Right in the street, the town of Chicago, right on the rise and following me. Sadness, right in the streets, up to my thighs. Yeah, the river runs down the legs of the city. No women are crying and rivers are weeping.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Robbie Krieger, guitar player. John Densmore, percussionist, 22 years old. Far out, man.
Pamela Morrison, ornament.
Raymond Daniel Manzarek, 1-2-12-39, musician.
Name, occupation? Jim.
Day. You know the day destroys the night. Night divides the
Sides are
day.
being chosen. The planet is screaming for change, Morrison. We gotta make the myths.
You need to say the first shaman invented sex.
Break on through to the other.
They call him the one who makes you crazy.
I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything.
Jim Morrison, the god of rock.
The guys at Network have told us that they have a little problem with the lyric, girl, we couldn't get much higher. They asked if you could say instead, girl, we can't get much better. Can you dig that?
Girl, we couldn't get much higher.
I love it when you sing to me.
I'm the poet and you're my muse.
Do you hear them out there? It's do they want now?
If I was to say to you,
You ever tried drinking blood?
Mr. Morrison, you gone too far.
You're a poet, not a rock star.
What you gonna do for Act 3?
Go on, kill me. Come on, give me some death.
Let's just say I was testing the bounds of reality.
And now, direct from Los Angeles, California, ladies and gentlemen, here now, The Doors.
Hi, this is Dave Mason, co-founder of the Classic Band Traffic and writer of a song which you all know called Feeling All Right. And you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, we're back. And while we're on the subject of the Doors, my special guest for the evening at one point had one of the largest independently owned record stores in San Diego. And later, after he, let's just say he retired from that industry, he co-founded with a group of friends the Morrison Hotel Gallery, which is basically a collection, a comprehensive collection, I might add, of art and photography of some famous and very well-known musical people out of the 60s and early 70s, specifically the Doors and the Beatles. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening, Rich Horowitz. Rich, how are you?
Hey, man. Thanks a lot for having me on.
This is a real treat, and I'm really glad that we got together and we could kick the year off like this, because me being a huge Doors and Beatles fan, and you yourself. So why don't you tell us, give us a little background on yourself and tell us how this all began for you. And also, by the way, you're a musician and a car collector, and you're from Detroit.
Correct. Yeah, growing up in Detroit, anything that had a motor on it intrigued me. So didn't matter, mini bike, go-kart, motorcycle, cars, as long as it had a motor, I was into it. And then I was also collecting records as a kid because Detroit was such a great rock and roll town to grow up in. But I left Detroit, in the 70s, came to San Diego and opened a record store. I thought, man, if I'm going to do something, might as well do something that I like. So I opened up a record store in 1978. And we became San Diego's largest indie store. We had new and used records. We had rare out-of-print records, lots of imports, lots of, indie label stuff. As you and I spoke the other day, we had a Nirvana in-store. We were one of two stores in the country that Nirvana actually played a show, and they played like a 30-minute set in our store, which, by the way, you can still see on YouTube. If you just YouTube Nirvana Live off the record San Diego, you can actually see the whole performance. It was quite amazing. We didn't realize how amazing it was at the time, but it ended up being a really historic moment. So opened up the record store. We ended up growing it to 3 locations, and it was a great time. I mean, it was the punk thing was happening, and of course all the British invasion had already happened, but we were big fans. And we had the store for 25 years, and I would say the first 23 were really, really fun. Last couple got pretty challenging, because Napster was happening and CDs had kind of taken over for vinyl, and it was just a huge, huge shift in the industry. So luckily I was able to get out of the record business after 25 years. But during that time, I was also working with the John Lennon estate. You mentioned you were a Beatles fan, and I don't know if you were aware that John Lennon was actually an artist before he was a Beatle. So he was drawing. He loved to draw. He started drawing when he was actually quite young, 11, 12 years old. But in 1969, John released a portfolio of 15 lithographs. They were called Bag One. And they were called Bag One because they all were sold. All 15 lithographs were sold in a big vinyl bag. And of course, John's quirky sense of humor, he had these available for sale. And of the 15 lithographs, 8 of them were erotic drawings of him and Yoko. And by today's standards, I mean, incredibly tame. But in 1969, they were pretty edgy. And that coupled with the fact that the government in the U.S. was kind of looking for ways to get John out of the country. So they were raiding his art shows. He was doing art shows. He did one in London. He did one in Detroit. He did one in New York. Police actually raided the shows and confiscated the artwork, shut the shows down. And John was so frustrated after that because he really wanted people to see the art, and he was selling the art. I mean, these were hand-signed by John. Every lithograph was hand-signed by John, so they were incredibly cool. But he was very frustrated after that, and he basically stopped showing his artwork after those shows. They took him to court, charged him with obscenity. They lost the case. The government lost the case because they were actually comparing some of John's drawings to Picasso drawings. There were some very lovely sketches that he did. But so the Bag One lithographs sort of faded into obscurity for a long time. But, you know, over time, they became more and more rare, and people obviously wanted to own these because they were hand-signed by John. So I started touring with this artwork. In the mid-'80s, I was lucky enough to acquire a portfolio. I was a fan again, you know, since I was a kid, was able to acquire a portfolio. And through a series of very lucky happenstance things, I met Yoko's assistant. And she basically said, you know, we don't really have any galleries representing this artwork. So if you and your partner want to take it on the road, we'll give you the full support of the Lennon estate. And she was only letting 2 people at the time do that. And so we did our first Lennon exhibit in 1990. And what we thought was going to be, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 opportunities turned into a 26-year run of about 100 exhibitions across the U.S. and Canada. So it was a huge thrill for me, as you can imagine, because being a Beatles fan from the time I was a kid and having the opportunity to show this artwork to the world was just an amazing thrill. And what happened was, after John passed away in 1980, Yoko had hundreds and hundreds of original drawings that he had done. So she started in 1986, started releasing these posthumous editions of John's artwork. She was signing them just to authenticate that they were coming directly from her. But she would make these editions. They would do editions of 300 prints, just like John did with his lithographs. And so she made those available to us as well. And we would have, anywhere from 80 to 100 works of art in the shows. They were all free to the public. Anybody could come in and peruse and look at the artwork, and we would tell them stories behind the artwork. And they were available for sale. But basically, the exhibitions were completely free. And it was just an amazing time. It was just an absolute blast. And it was through the Lennon art that I met my dear partner, Henry Diltz. Okay. And when Henry contacted me, this was like 22 years ago, you know, and started talking about, you know, himself, I said, man, I own every record that you shot the cover for. I'm very familiar with your photography. Long story short, Henry and I became partners. We started doing a few pop-ups around the country, like I did with the Lennon art. And we opened our first permanent gallery in New York City, like 22 years ago. And we only opened with Henry's work. I mean, we loved Henry's work, of course. You know, you had mentioned the Doors, and Henry shot the Doors Morrison Hotel album cover, you know, as well as about 200 other album covers. And it was, you know, all the music that I love, the whole Laurel Canyon scene, the singer-songwriters. So we opened up our gallery in New York City just showing Henry's work, but all these other photographers kind of started coming out of the woodwork, all these famous music photographers that never really had any representation. And they loved the fact that I was a rock and roll nut. They loved the fact that I owned record stores. So little by little, they started saying, well, you've got this cool gallery and you're partners with Henry, so we'd like you to represent us as well. And so from one photographer, we now represent 125 photographers. And it's not just rock and roll, it's jazz from the 40s and 50s. It's hip hop, it's punk, it's almost metal, and almost any genre you can think of we have represented on our website. But it's been an amazing ride to think that I was actually able to do something that I love and make a living at it. It's been an amazing ride for me, and I never ever take it for granted.
Well, it's really, you and I are roughly in the same age bracket. So, we grew up in the 60s, and you were either into sports, music, cars and music, usually because they always went hand in hand, and
right.
and guitars, obviously, because you're a guitar guy too. And so, but that background, it's just like, and we're in some respects, we're kind of like stuck in our decade there, which is the 60s, really. I mean, the 70s were cool, but the 60s music is, especially 65 to 70. That was some breakthrough music, some really good stuff. And your gallery has and you're representing the Doors and obviously the Beatles, not to mention numerous other bands. But because of your background growing up listening to music, you're very, and if you probably read some of the magazines and some of the articles back in the day that were written, you're kind of educated, you're in touch and in tune with the whole, that genre. Okay. So now here you are, fast forward in the 2000s, and you're teaming up with Henry. And also there's a Mick Fleetwood connection here too, right?
There is. Yeah. Actually, our third gallery, we opened our first gallery in New York City. We opened our second gallery in West Hollywood. And then about 6 years ago, Mick actually came into our LA gallery, and he really loved the way the gallery looked and felt. And he, on Maui, Mick lives on Maui. He has a restaurant called Fleetwood's on Front Street. And below the restaurant's on the second floor. Below the restaurant, he had this sort of little gallery that he called Fleetwood's General Store. But it wasn't really so much of a gallery. It was, they were selling some vinyl and guitar picks and shot glasses, just kind of little memorabilia stuff. But he really kind of wanted to raise the bar on that. So he invited Morrison Hotel Gallery to come to Maui. And of course, we were thrilled. We jumped at the chance. And so 6 years ago, we partnered with Mick, and we turned Fleetwood's General Store into Morrison Hotel Gallery. And that's where we are now. And it's a fun place. I don't know if any of your listeners ever make it over to Maui, but if they do, we're right in the middle of Lahaina, and great folks working there. They know all the backstories. That's the other piece of the photography is, you can look at a photograph, and it's one thing to look at the Doors Morrison Hotel album cover and go, man, that's a really cool cover. But the backstory to that album cover is fantastic. It's funny. It's something that really, maybe could never happen again. I don't know. Did we talk about that story, Robert?
No, but
hear that story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, briefly, I'll just kind of highlight it, and then you emphasize on it. But basically, they were walking past the hotel, or this old abandoned hotel, I think it was, and it said Morrison Hotel, and they say, hey, this would be a great place to do a shot. And somehow they snuck in there real quick. And what, Henry happened to be with them? Is that how the whole deal went, or what happened?
No. Actually, Ray Manzarek had seen the hotel.
Okay,
it was a flop house.
Oh,
it was an actual hotel, but it was a flop house. I mean, that sign in the window that says $250 a night. I mean, that was legit. If you can imagine, even in 1969, a hotel room for $2.50, you got to be a little scared of that, right?
Well, hold on. I got to tell you this. In the early, I grew up in Marin County. My mom and dad had a motel in San Francisco, and in 1961, 62, we were renting rooms at Lombard Street during the convention season for $4 and $5 a night. So I buy it.
Wow, crazy.
So
Ray Manzarek actually said, "Hey, man, there's this cool hotel. Let's go down there and take some shots." So Henry drove down there with the band. They actually went down there in I think it was in John Densmore's, might have been Robbie Krieger's V-Dub bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get down to the hotel, and Henry walks in the front door, and the guy behind the counter is standing there, and Henry says, "Hey, I'm here with some friends. We just want to take a few shots." And the guy says, "Oh, absolutely not. You got to talk to the owner. You got to get his permission, and he's not around." So he basically kind of kicks him out. And when they're standing in front of the front window, Henry looks inside, and he sees the guy get in the elevator. And he says to the band, "Quick, run in that front window." So they literally run into the lobby of the hotel. This is not staged. This is all like spontaneous. They run into the hotel, take these spots. Henry shoots one roll of film. They run out, and boom, that becomes the album cover.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Henry rolls. I mean, Henry never set shots up. It was never, when he was shooting the first Crosby, Stills and Nash album, that wasn't a set-up shot. That was just kind of happenstance. And, every one of Henry's shots has a really fun story behind it. So that's a whole nother piece, to photography collecting. It's just, learning the story. Kind of like, with vintage cars, what's the provenance? Who owned that car? What was going on with it? It's the same lines, us collector bunches are a freaky bunch,
Yeah.
So it's really tons of fun.
Well, now you had, I think you've also done some stuff with Tom O'Neill. Tom was on our show a few years ago. He did, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young album, right? That was
he did the Deja Vu cover.
The Deja Vu cover. And then there's another.
Yeah, we represent Tom's work. He did a lot of great stuff in Laurel Canyon, just like Henry. A lot of the singer-songwriters, Joni Mitchell. And yeah, Tom's got some fantastic work.
And then, and I want to get back to a quick Tom story here. And then there's another guy that I want to talk a little bit about, and you probably know or connect with him too. Is it Frank Lisciandro? Did I pronounce that right?
There's Frank Stefanko?
No, I think it's Lisciandro. He's the one that supposedly there's a YouTube channel which showed he did a film with Jim Morrison driving the Shelby, the Blue Lady.
Oh, okay.
And apparently he was friends with them. And then I guess there was another guy that was that used to do some stuff with him, and I believe his name was Paul Ferreira, something like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Paul shot some really cool Doors stuff.
He did early on stuff, right, with them?
Really early.
Okay, because I think they all went to UCLA together. I think is that what it was?
I'm not sure, but I actually have some of Paul's work on the website as well.
Okay, now let's go back to
most of Paul's work now is actually owned by the Doors estate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tom O'Neill. Tom, when he was on our show, and you can finish the story because you have a cool ending to the story. So Tom was at the Monterey Pop Festival, and Jimi Hendrix was there playing, right? So Tom was, for the first couple of days there, I think he was in front taking pictures, but he wanted to get a side shot of Jimi Hendrix. Well, apparently when he switched with another photographer, and there was a pole in the way or something was in the way, and he couldn't get these really, really good shots. And it was right when Jimi Hendrix lit the guitar on fire. So now you take the story from there.
Well, there was really two photographers that captured that amazing moment. Jim Marshall, who was a very, very famous San Francisco photographer, and another Bay Area photographer named Jerry DeWild. So they both shot Jimmy lighting his guitar on fire. Do you know why Jimmy lit his guitar on fire?
No. I mean, there's stories, but go ahead, tell us what's the real one.
Well, there was a coin flip to see who was going to go on last. Was it going to be Jimmy or was it going to be the Who? And Jimmy knew, that if the Who went on last, they were just going to kill it because they would thrash their, guitars and their amplifier. So that was Jimmy's response, to the Who busting everything up. And so he had to do a one better than them, and that's what he did. Poured the lighter fluid on the guitar and boom, lit it on fire, and that became such a famous moment at Monterey Pop. I mean, that's just a historical moment.
Now,
Jimmy blew everybody away.
No doubt. And then, so you've got the photographer that took that picture. You have that in the Morrison Gallery?
We do.
Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty cool. I actually own that photograph because I was a huge fan, and I loved what went on at Monterey Pop.
Now, speaking of which, did you go to any concerts, like memorable concerts back then? You're obviously from Detroit, so you got MC5, you got Nugent, Seeger, or it was back the Seeger. What was it, Silver something Connection or whatever it was, the Seeger?
Well, no, back then it was just the Bob Seeger system.
Bob Seeger system, that's what it was, yeah. And, let's see, I'm trying to think. There was a couple other, and obviously Motown. You're a big Motown. You got to be a Motown. Dukes. Amboy Dukes, that's right. That was Ted Nugent before he was with
Journey to the Center of Your Mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Michigan had a really, really cool festival called the Goose Lake Music Festival. So that was the festival I was at. And it was actually still... Again, collector geek. I still have my handbills and my posters from the from the show. But Goose Lake was a fantastic festival. It was probably about 200,000 people near Jackson, Michigan. So I was at that festival. I didn't go to Monterey Pop because I was still in Detroit. I was still a bit young for to be flying out to concerts. And I didn't go to Woodstock. I have a number of friends that did, and of course Henry Diltz was actually the official photographer. There's a couple of photographers that lay claim to that. And Henry was actually the only one hired by Michael Lang and paid to come there. And he was there 2 weeks before the show started. So Henry's got photos of all the people building the stages. And, he said it was kind of like summer camp. Everybody was, hanging outside and eating sandwiches and building stages. And then he said, all of a sudden, he looked up on the hill and there was a couple people sitting there. And then, little by little, it just, grew and grew and grew. And of course, the rest is history. But Henry was actually hired and paid by Michael Lang to come there. And he was the only photographer who was allowed to sit up, like right, on the stage, behind the stage, right where all the filmmakers were. Henry was standing right next to Jimi Hendrix on Monday morning at like 5 a.m. when he played the Star Spangled Banner.
Greg Raleigh was one of the co-founders of Santana with Carlos, and they were all there at Woodstock, right? So as the story goes, this is Greg Raleigh on our show a number of years ago talking about how they were trying to get into town for something or leave or whatever it was. And there was a blue Corvette in front of him that just weaving all over the road, right? And Greg was behind this car, and he just couldn't figure out, what's the matter with this guy? I mean, left and right, and this lane and that lane. Finally, Greg got around him. When he looked to see who was driving the car, it was Jimmy. And there's validation. There's truth to the fact that Jimmy had a 69 Corvette, a blue 69 Corvette back in the day.
Wow. That's somehow I don't picture Jimmy in a Corvette.
You know what? I mean, it's kind of like some of the guitars. I tried to research some of the guitars that he's had, and at one point I ran across some article that said he actually played Defender Mustang. Well, there's a guy on a website that does this, that talks about the gear that certain musicians played. And that's the one guitar that he doesn't talk about. But apparently he did at one point in time, because there was another article I read. So, you always have to kind of do your own research a little bit, and you have to kind of fact check it a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of stories about Jimmy and the blue Corvette. No different than Jim Morrison with the blue 67 Shelby. Yeah, right. Which I'm still trying to find. I want you to know that.
The Shelby or the picture of the Shelby?
The Shelby, the blue lady. It's out there somewhere. I was in Arizona. I thought I found it because I found a blue 67 Shelby in some guy's backyard in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I knew the serial number of the car, which I'm not going to reveal, but it's out there. Because this other guy in Massachusetts somehow managed to buy the registration, the pink slip to that car. And then to continue with the Jim Morrison story, I'm in Clearwater, Florida. Jim's grandparents used to live here. In fact, where they used to live is 4 blocks from this radio station. So the radio station is in this area, and it's always been in this area. So Jimmy, somehow his vibe is in our area here. That's why we play a lot of Doors music, because Jimmy, his spirit's still roaming around Clearwater here.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And his parents lived on Coronado right here in San Diego.
Well, how about that? That's just, what a connection.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. It's like the guys that found the Bullet Mustang, right?
Yep.
Steve McQueen film.
Well, the one that they found, there was two of them.
There was a couple of them, right?
Yeah, there was a couple film cars. They found the one in Mexico, and then the one that I can't think of his name right now. Kernan is his name.
Queen?
Yeah, the original one that he had that sold at Meekham's a couple of years ago for $3.5 or $4 million, whatever it was, somewhere in that price range. But so give us a couple other really cool stories of some of the other really interesting encounters that you've had.
Met some really, really fun people, because of Henry. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with Graham Nash, been to Graham's house in Kauai before he left and moved back to New York. Jackson Brown, Whoopi Goldberg.
You got Dave Mason connection too, right?
Had Roger Waters in the gallery looking through proof sheets. That's kind of funny because, of course, anybody that meets Roger Waters, of course, is, going to gush and talk about what a huge Pink Floyd fan they are. And so I thought I would take a little different tack. We had a really young photograph of Roger Waters in England with these two cats sitting in the photo. And so I figured, you know what? I'm going to ask him about his cats. Kind of caught him off guard, but he really loved telling stories about his cats.
We're talking kitty cats now, right?
We're talking kitty cats, felines.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. We, we had Robbie Krieger in the gallery. We did a big event with Robbie. I guess it was just before COVID. Our gallery in West Hollywood is actually in a hotel, and it's in a rock and roll hotel called the Sunset Marquis. And the Marquis just has this amazing rock and roll history. So we set up a big stage. And we had Robbie Krieger there, and he was playing, and we had a couple of the other photographers, playing harp with them, and Miley Cyrus was jamming with them and doing Roadhouse Blues, and it was a really fun night. We didn't think Robbie was going to want to play more than like one or two songs. He ended up, being up there for like an hour.
Oh, cool.
And you and I talked about, Gibson SG, man. That's a guitar I've always wanted. I never owned an SG, but I always wanted one.
And that's what Robbie plays is an SG. That is just
yeah. So it's been just such a fun ride because being such a huge rock and roll fan, anytime have an opportunity to meet any of these people, it's a huge thrill for me still. One of the funniest stories, I wasn't in New York at the time, but we had this woman in the gallery. There's this awesome shot of Springsteen in front of a 1960 Corvette. It was on the front of his book, actually. Okay. And we represent the photographer that shot that. He's a terrific friend. His name's Frank Stefanko. He took that shot, and we have it in the gallery. And this woman was in there, and she's kind of trying to decide between these two Bruce photographs. And Bruce walks in the gallery.
No way.
And is kind of standing behind her. And he goes, "I'd take the Corvette." And he actually wrote the whole story out for her on the back of the photograph.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that Corvette was on display in Philadelphia. We did a big show in Philly probably about 8 years ago with Bruce at the National this huge convention center in Philly, and they actually had the Corvette on display there.
Interesting. Well, since we're on the subject of the cars, we got a few minutes left. You have some notable cars in your own personal collection. Why don't you tell us a few about those?
Yeah, I'm an analog kind of guy. I'm not a digital guy, and I kind of like original stuff. It's just always what I've collected, whether it was records or guitars. And so I have a 1970 XKE E-Type Roadster. Just matching numbers. It's all original. It's not, and none of these are show cars, right? These are, I drive. I like to drive the cars that I own. I don't buy them to show. I don't buy them to do anything with other than drive them because I love driving old cars. So I have a 70 E-Type that I've had for quite a long time. Before that, I had a 1954 XK120 Roadster and a 1967 Pontiac GTO because I had to give a nod to Detroit, right?
Okay.
But I sold both of those. I bought the E-Type, and then about a year ago, I was lucky enough to find a Porsche 914-6. And probably are aware the 914-6s were not the V-dub engine, right?
No, it's a 911 2-liter. Yeah.
Yep. It's got the 911 engine in it, and it's a blast. It's like just a kind of a fun go-kart. It handles really, really well. All matching numbers. About 60,000 miles on it, but all original interior paint. And then I was lucky enough to find a 1972 a BMW E9 about 2 months ago.
Okay, very rare car, 3-liter, a CS car, 2-door coupe.
Yeah, I've always loved the styling of that car.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at them for years and years and years, and finally had an opportunity to pick this one up. And same thing, matching numbers, real clean, all original. I think it's also got about 60 or 65,000 miles on it, but just drives great. Manual tranny, 4-speed. A lot of people, like to put the 5 speeds in them for the overdrive, but I like to just keep them how they were when they were sold.
Yep.
And just love driving them. That's my passion. I like to just get out on a day and spend an hour or two by myself just driving old cars. Makes me feel great.
That's what we call a little high velocity meditation.
You bet.
On that note, we are up against the clock, Rich. Why don't you go ahead and give out all the information so people can find out more about the Morrison Hotel Gallery? This has been a great show. I truly enjoyed having you on.
Well, I appreciate you having me for the first show of the year. Yeah, check the gallery out if you're a music fan of any genre. It's just MorrisonHotelGallery.com. Just think of the Doors album, Morrison Hotel, and MorrisonHotelGallery.com. We have a lot of cool stuff, and even if you're not looking to buy, you probably have a really lot of fun just perusing the site. We also have a cool section on the site called Behind the Lens, and they're basically videos of a lot of our famous photographers telling their stories. So if you have some time to kill and you just want to listen to some great stories by some great photographers, go onto the website and look at Behind the Lens.
Sounds great. Hey, do you know this song? Does this ring a bell? Does this ring a bell, this song? You there? Rich?
Yeah, I'm listening.
All right. Break on through to the other side. This is our closing song, and it has been since day one. So we are huge Doors fans.
That's a great one, man.
Yeah. Well, we open with In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, and we close with, and I'm sure you probably have a In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida story, but we'll do that the next time because we're definitely going to have you back. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much for coming out and hanging out with us here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and we look forward to having Henry and maybe Robbie and a couple other guys on our show. Mick Fleet would be also interesting.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Okay. Hey, I want to thank all my special guests for tuning in to Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Don't forget, every Tuesday between 7 and 8 p.m. here on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through. Bring on through. Bring on through. Bring on through.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyrhills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper in Chicago. Women seeking abortion pills in the U.S. will now be able to get it through the mail where permitted by law. CBS's Alexander Tin.
The FDA says it will now allow retail pharmacies to get certified to fill prescriptions for mifepristone. That's the so-called early option pill for self-managed medication abortions. Dispensing of the drug had